City lights flicker beneath the weight of night. Shadowed footsteps trace forgotten paths across rooftops. Echoes of celebration shimmer faintly in the distance. Were those screams in the alleyway? Silver City, Diamond District, Terra Peska. Are they still beacons of peace? Or is peace just a trembling echo hidden in darkness? Flashes of violence. A shadow streaking across the skyline. Have we become blind to the creeping violence? Now, you must ask yourself, when justice fails, who answers the call? Team Dragon Force or someone else? Something darker? Another savior, perhaps? Find the answers to this and more next on Free Your Mind. All right. We are on location in the book. Silver City, Avian, Festival of the Dragons. Night had fallen upon both the visitors and townspeople of Silver City. Mastredic and Diesel had left their designated areas, having served the people all day. They now hovered together above the festivities, done with being praised and idolized. The Kamal Prince could see his teammate's shimmering blue hue in the distance. Diesel just smiled before moving over to Mastredic. He knew Komodo was having a blast. He always does. I'm so tired of people, Diesel exhaled, leaning against him in midair. His hand longingly and purposely grazed against Mastredic's. Please tell me we're spending the night in the Silver Palace. I mean, you can stay here, but I'm going back to Opinot tonight, Mastredic huffed sarcastically. Diesel turned and looked at his love with disappointment. After a moment, he rolled his eyes and turned his back to him. I mean, you can go. I'm sure one of my many followers can keep me company in your absence. Mastredic just grinned. What? Are you afraid to spend some time alone without me? What? No, not even, he responded, his back still turned. Mastredic rolled his own eyes, grinning at the notion of leaving his bow. He placed his hand upon Diesel's shoulder, rubbing them gently. Really, Scott? You're going to try and fool around on me? Mastredic said, leaning forward and speaking softly into Diesel's ear. Diesel turned around and stared into his lover's eyes, the core of his body feeling warmer than before. Try? No. Succeed? Diesel said seductively. Mastredic licked his lips, his desire for his mate rising. Diesel held on to his shoulders, staring into his orange-speckled, fire-colored eyes. The dreadlocked deity moved his gaze hungrily down at Diesel's moist lips, wishing to taste them. Well, I guess we can keep Casey and Daniel company for a night if you want. I'm flexible. I can make love to you anywhere. Mastredic's hands began to explore Diesel's backside. Diesel quickly moved in close to him, giving him a peck on the cheek before slowly floating away. Mastretic grabbed him and pulled him back in. Diesel gasped, looking around the grounds. No! People are watching. People? What people? Mastretic said softly, leaning in and kissing Diesel. Diesel moaned softly as their noses touched, sparkling as they did. Prince Scott, Christia, my love, all I see is you. Location: Silver City Avian. Diamond District city limits. A dark figure appeared in the peaceful sky over the city landscape. This mysterious wonder was leaping from building to building. He stopped briefly to check an area, his shiny black helmet shimmering in the night light. Its giant capital letter H, outlined in bold red, could be seen. He was searching for trouble and sure to find it. A darkness had seeped into the peaceful lands of Enosh. It was once a place of peace, prosperity, and serenity. Silver City, Diamond District, Terra Peska. These were the shining examples of what Enosh was. Now, ever since Nomad disappeared, times had just gotten darker. Crime had risen beyond reproach. Enosh was changing, but no one wanted to see the creeping darkness. This rising evil chose to do their dirt in the dark, but he wouldn't stand for it. Various people in these major cities had been talking. Speculation of his existence had people calling him the Dark Avenger. Those that ended up on the other end of his justice quickly learned his true name: Hawk. The vigilante could still hear the echoing sounds of the festival. He was a little in shock that the massive celebration could still be heard across the limits of Silver City. Suddenly, he heard the sounds of a scuffle. The vigilante within felt a level of satisfaction. The distress of multiple voices. He knew he must act quickly to save lives. It was the thought that it may already be too late that drove him. He moved swiftly toward the sound, propelled by his feelings of urgency. Spreading his bladed wings, he glided between buildings too far for him to jump. He approached quietly, getting closer to the sounds of the scene. He crept along until he could see the conflict from his roost. It was a sinister occurrence that played out in the alley below. A crowd of perpetrators had given two males a beatdown. The other gang members hollered and celebrated their friends as they continued to attack the two men who held on to each other. Against one of the building walls, the other townies cowered in fear. He saw yet another townie male and two accompanying females. Threatened by two of these accosting gang thugs, they cringed from such a horrific demonstration of power. The three of them were helpless to stop what was happening to their two other friends. "Oh, please, stop," one of the girls begged. The other man in the group had tried to attack their captors. One of the thugs just beat him in the head with the weapon in his hand. The other kicked him across the face the minute he had been knocked on his butt. The girls' wails of sorrow and cries for help were pointless. The perpetrators knew they had fallen on deaf ears. Hawk knew differently. The Dark Avenger's anger was festering at the surface. He knew it was his own determination that drove him to seek them out. Otherwise, their sounds of disparity would have truly been drowned out by the noise of the festival around them. He knew he had to fix this. Hawk took immediate action. Startled, the two attackers gasped. Each dropped their weapons and grabbed at their necks with both hands. One of the girls, Betty, took her attention from her fallen friend and looked around, not sure of what was happening. The other thugs had ceased their cheers at the realization of what was happening. In shock, they watched as their cohorts were being yanked up into the air. "Who's there?" one yelled, a bit spooked by the thought of magic being used against them. The mysterious figure had quickly adjusted them. Their friends were unconscious now, the arms spread out. They were just dangling around like puppets on strings, swaying slightly. "Show yourself!" another cried out. One thug had pulled a knife to defend himself. His buddy did the same, running over and grabbing one of the girls by the throat. The other thug pushed the other girl out of the way and pressed the knife against the bleeding guy. "I will kill him! We will kill them both!" he yelled. He pressed his knee firmly onto the man's chest. The kneeling assailant fell back, attacked by sharp identified objects that had whisked through the air and lodged into him. One had hit his thuggish companion between his eyes, and another lodged into the scoundrel's neck. "Gah!" the girls both screamed. The female hostage ran back into the arms of her friend. Briefly comforting one another, the pair worked to pull their male friend back to them. Having fallen back uncontrollably, both thugs now laid upon the ground. They stayed there, struggling and bleeding. The sounds of his gurgling blood had slowly faded. Had death come to take him? No, just a sedative. Hawk was no killer. "OMG, Brenda," Betty whispered to her townie friend. She had looked up, seeing a magnificent sight. Massive wings soaring overhead had cast deep shadows across them. She shook her friend with one hand, gasping at the sight as she pointed with the other. Her voice went from a whisper to a squeak. "Did you see that?" 4 of the thugs had been taken care of. There were 2 more to deal with. Hawk noticed that the remaining gang members were fumbling around in their pockets. Finally, one of them revealed a weapon that had only been rumored. Hawk had never before seen one in use. He had heard rumors of these new threats, whispers that these shooters were now out on the streets. He wondered if they were localized or all over Avian. As far as he knew, they could have been produced in the heart of Diamond District itself. "Toot, toot, toot!" The Dark Avenger could see the ejected projectiles coming his way. It was too late to try and move out of their path. He just prayed that his armor could protect him. Tink, tink, tink. The projectiles missed his body, but his wings were hit. The 2 criminals watched with disbelief as the projectiles ricocheted away. They didn't even penetrate the wings of their enemy. The Dark Avenger was unfazed, and so they realized he was destined to descend upon them. The shaggiest of the pair threw down his shooter and decided to turn and run. They were defeated before they could escape. The one who had stood his ground soon hit the ground. He fell face first, knocked unconscious from the drop kick Hawk delivered to him. The runner fell thanks to 3 of the Dark Avengers' quote-unquote birdies embedding into him. "Aye, no!" the thug cried out. The fallen foe clawed at the stone ground as he was pulled backward by whatever was wrapped around his leg. Betty watched curiously. She and Brenda had migrated over to the 2 fallen male townie friends, helping them. She could hear nothing, but clearly a conversation was taking place. The whimpering sounds of the co-conspirators' response were confirmation of that. Ah! Ah! His high-pitched scream caused her to jump. Soon he was raised up like the others, unconscious. His arms flailed out. Betty covered her mouth to stifle her screams at the sight of the dark figure approaching them. Betty's body trembled with unbridled fear. The red letter H was all she could focus on. Her own whimpers turned into a stifled cry, seeing her own reflection in his helmet. After a moment, Hawk turned away from them, briefly assessing the mess of bodies both on the ground and hanging above. Brenda realized they were not alone. She turned, gasping as she noticed the intense fire hawk symbol. Her eyes rose, gazing upon the same red H that Betty stared at. Brenda squinted, hoping to get a better look inside his helmet, a better look at their savior. Hawk, gazing at his hanging handiwork, refocused his attention to the five townies. Betty grabbed her friend's hand in response. The Dark Avenger never said a word, but looked away and pointed. It was the exit back to more populated streets. Brenda shook her head yes, repeatedly, making sure he understood that she understood. Betty? She tapped her friend. Betty continued to stare up at Hawk. Brenda pulled away from her, helping up Doug. He helped up Eric, and the other one, who had been beaten, like himself. The boy helped their friend Poet stand. He seemed to have responded the worst from the beating, his face pretty bloodied. They stumbled to stay standing. Holy shit. Doug gulped, his body shaken from either the trauma or the fear. Seeing the Dark Avenger standing there with them was horrific in itself. Betty! Brenda screamed, finally getting her friend's attention. Pulled from her fearful trance, Betty looked at her friends. Oh, Eric! Doug! OMG! She nearly cried, noticing they were vertical and awake. Betty hugged them, triggering a groan of pain from them. Oh, merciful heavens! You're both okay! The townies needed to hurry and leave. What they originally thought was a secluded space was not a place of peace at all. Brenda motioned for Betty to take over while she moved to grab any of their personal things or psychedelics that still littered the ground from the assault. Soon she returned to help, guiding the boys to the alley's exit. The girls both stopped and looked at each other. Their mysterious savior had disappeared. The lot of them headed as quickly as they could manage toward safety. Betty, the mesmerized girl, allowed her friends to go on without her. She continued to look into the air for him. She would never stop looking up. He had changed the trajectory of her destiny. Let's go, Betty! Eric yelled out urgently. As she should, she turned away to rejoin her friends. Toward the dispersing festival crowd they went. She would be forever grateful. Thank you. All right, folks, welcome to the Author's Corner. What you've just heard is the beginning of Hawk's story. To you, anyway. Here we meet him right in his element, where he has shown these young hipsters exactly what lies in the dark. a protector, someone they've never seen before. But previous to that, we had a little introduction to Diesel and Master Dredic and their relationship. You know, possibly did we know they were together? Well, if you didn't, you do now. So, as we go through these questions, maybe you could try to answer them before I do, with your own. Let's find out. All right, first question. Why does Diesel choose the Silver City Palace over going back home to Openod, where he protects? That's his city, his kingdom to protect, right? What is he truly? Excuse me. What is he truly avoiding or hoping to find? Well, this question peels back the surface, revealing a deeper motivation. I think it's just a glimpse into the longing that they have, their love for one another. All right, next question. Does Master Dredic's sharp teasing reflect hidden jealousy, or is he masking That's a hard word. Is he masking vulnerability behind swagger? Well, I can honestly say that his banter is most definitely playful. It definitely it's not. There's no malice there. It's not some type of protective shield or something crazy like that. It's all part of their game. It's part of their teethy lust for one another. Mm-hmm. More on that later. Now we're going to move over to the man of the hour, Hawk himself. We're going to go through some questions about what you just read, what these girls and the guys, what they experienced. And we're going to get to the nitty gritty, if there is any. All right, question number 1 for this. Why has Silver City become a magnet for crime? And what role does Hawk play in its shifting destiny? The answer for that, I would say, is that Enosh, Silver City, Diamond District, Terra Peska, all of them, they were once a beacon of prosperity within Enosh, and they still are. They still are, for the most part. But let's just look at Silver City specifically. That fall that seems inevitable, it just mirrors the creeping darkness within. Okay. Hawk's emergence as the Dark Avenger, it really signifies a new era of resistance, a vigilante rebirth to protect that which T-Bolt is oblivious to. So it would seem. All right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Tanaki, you don't see that. We're going to go to the next one. Question number 2. What drives Hawk's urgency as he intervenes? Duty, guilt, or something darker? He is one of my buddy's favorite characters. I don't think he even knows why he likes him so much. I think if he actually read the book, which I don't know if he has, I haven't asked. I don't even know if he has a copy. But I do know that this is his favorite character, and I can see why. He's one of my favorite characters too. Anyways, that's a side note. The actual question here, the answer to that about his urgency, duty, guilt, something darker, all that. I would say his swift, brutal intervention suggests more than heroism. It hints at a deep seated resolve. The violence is efficient, but laced with emotional undercurrents, painting Hawk as a protector driven by an unknown haunt. And I'll go a step further because you know who his brother is. You know what his brother can do. And you know who he is, more or less. Anyways, last question. What does the descent of Enosh tell us about the power vacuum left by T-Bolt and Team Dragon Force? And how many of the other kingdoms are unraveling like this? That's a good question. Well, I would say that the decay that we are seeing in this example is it just implies that it's the beginning of, I would say, a domino effect. Do we have time to see that happen? Will we see that domino effect take place later? Well, the real thing is, in this example, it shows that T-Bolt's ignorance isn't isolated. The real question is it just T-Bolt, or are the others of Team Dragon Force as unaware as he is? I'm going to leave you, I think, to answer that question all on your own. Yeah. Well, you know what you got to do. If you haven't yet, if you're new to this channel, make sure you go back and start from the beginning. No, they're not as polished as this video is, and this one is not as polished as the next one will be, or the next few may be. It's a possibility things will change. But one thing is for certain, the story will not. We will continue on in the very next episode. So make sure you like and subscribe to get the notifications for the continuation. What comes next? Find out on Free Your Mind. See you then.